No, it's he gets cryogenically frozen, and
He's in the future, obviously.
yeah, so it takes place in space. So it turns into an alien movie ripoff, but it's fun. It's like it's dumb, but it's fun. You just got to get him his mask back and get him not to look like a half metal retard. So.
Hello and welcome to Quackcast number 344. I'm Ozone Ocean and with me is Pitsy. Hello, Pitsy.
Oi!
Tansy. Hello, Tansy.
Hello.
And Bainsy. Hello, Bainsy.
Hello.
And it's me, Ozzy. All of us together. And we're going to be talking about active react... What is it? What's the action reaction? Active reactive characters. That's it. Active versus reactive. These are two particular character types that Tance has invented this entire theory about how to... No.
That wouldn't be wrong.
This is Tance's brilliant idea for a news post, and we're cannibalizing it for the Quackcast because it's rather interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at all characters, really, which you can just apply it to any characters and sort of think about them in that way, whether they're being active in a situation or just reactive. And Tance gives a really good... well, I won't spoil it. Before we get into that, though, we have to bring up the featured comic, and Kwai featured the comic this week, which means I have to do a featured comic next week, damn it. But Kwai's featured comic this week is...
Like Oz's stream of consciousness.
It's a torrent, I tell you, a torrent.
Kwai's featured comic this week is Lexi's Fight Against the Dead. So take it away, Kwai.
Hello, this is Kwai Degakse, and the feature I've selected for this week is Lexi's Fight Against the Dead by John Crow Works, and it is rated M for mature. Just in time for Halloween comes the frightful tale of a small town under siege by rabid zombie raccoons. These little critters are actually pretty cute until they acquire a taste for brains. This comic would definitely make anyone think twice before walking alone outside in the middle of the night. The jump scares in this story are pretty cute, mixed with hilarious. The comic is drawn entirely with digital ink. The pages maintain a limited grayscale color palette with small bursts of color. You better hide in your home before undead raccoons begin falling from the sky, and read Lexi's Fight Against the Dead by John Crow Works, rated M.
And that was Kwai's feature, Lexi's Fight Against the Dead, which is a fun-looking comic, and I hope everyone reads it and, listens to that. Well, you've already listened to that preview of it, that Kwai's review. Okay, next up we have the featured music that Gunwallace has given us, and he's given us the theme to Boys Land, which was a comic that Kwai featured. Boys Land. So Boys Land, well, this music, this one surprises you. It sneaks up with a gentle beginning, then it hits like a bomb burst of rainbows and warm breezes. It's just beautiful. It's the same tune repeated in many different forms. There's even a bit of Primus-type bass in there. Or bass. It finishes up, as it begins, with a gentle...
guitar, and it's got a fish.
That's it. It finishes up with a gentle acoustic fish. No, acoustic guitar. So take it away. Go on, Wallace. And that was our music by Mr. Gun Wallace. Thank you for that so much. Okay, active and reactive characters. Tans, tell us about this whole theory that you have brilliantly constructed.
I haven't constructed the theory. It is pretty
Let's do this.
but it is a very, I think it's a very interesting way to categorize characters in the sense that instead of categorizing them in protagonists, antagonists, or 2D, 3D, or whatever, the idea is to categorize them by the level of their own initiative in the story, how much the story is propelled by that character.
Okay.
So that usually means that the character that propels the story, that takes the initiative, that creates the situations to which all the other characters are reacting, is the one that is going to be the most interesting one. Whether he or she is the protagonist or not, the hero or the villain. And that's how a lot of people, especially analysts, explain why some villains, for example, are far more interesting than the heroes, and vice versa in other stories. So basically, that's the idea. And I believe that this is true. But the more the character initiates certain situations, the more interesting he or she becomes, because basically everybody else is dancing to the tune of that character.
Yes.
Rather than the other way around. So, of course, you are interested in the fiddler more than the dancer in this situation.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you want to have characters that are all interesting, you will need to have them make some critical decisions that will affect the story one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay. So, unlike the passive characters. Oh my god, what are these noises?
Yeah, they say like one of the it sounds like books are falling off a shelf somewhere or something.
Yeah, it's probably on my end, but it's going to settle in a second. So I'm really sorry. I apologize in advance or after the fact.
So that is why the passive characters say like the classic crappy Shinji in in Neon Genesis Evangelion, if anyone's seen it. He's such a horrible character because he's so passive and he waits for everything to happen to him. So that is a good example of why he is so horrible, because he's a passive character.
Which character was that? I missed the name.
Shinji Ikari from
Shinji Ikari.
Yeah, Neon Genesis. Abbott
One of
Nicky
those
loves that character.
Right. That's like one of the big rules of writing, right? Like they always say, like if your protagonist is too passive, then it'll be boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless your villain is very active, then of course everyone will be interested in the villain more.
Yeah.
But it won't be boring, at least.
Yeah. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Yeah. Characters that are totally just reactive. They're just not interesting. You take away anything that's anything that you can really get your teeth around, really, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nothing to root for if they're not doing anything or trying things or making things happen. But maybe it's more than that, more than just that.
I don't know, mate. I'm trying to think of examples where there have been reactive characters that are sort of interesting. Maybe it's a point of view reactive character, because then you're experiencing it through the character. So then that can make it a bit more sympathetic and a bit more interesting if it's a point of view character. What do you think?
Like to say Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz is the protagonist, the point of view character.
Well, she's not really a point of view.
But she's
first person.
I think I think Dorothy is taking a lot of initiative, to be honest. I don't think she's active.
Okay.
Say from a first-person perspective, when it's that kind of character, then it's you who is being reactive because it's, you're, as you're reading the story, it's going, and then I did this, and then I did that, then this happened to me, then that happened to me, and then so that can make it more sympathetic then, because you are already invested in the character because it's a first-person perspective, so you have to be invested in the character.
Right.
So that could make it better. I'll go on.
But that can also be handy for a less interesting character to be the I did this, I did that, or I saw this, I saw that. And then the characters around them can be a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
You can sort of imagine yourself as the protagonist, as that sort of old thing goes, about you have a bland main character, so the audience members project themselves into it.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
So, it is. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, allow me to paraphrase.
I have to say, however, that
take credit for it.
For example, if we take Tintin from The Adventures of Tintin, he basically is a blank character. He doesn't have much of a personality, so you can easily project, as opposed to all the other characters around him. So you can project basically your own ideas and be more into the story through him. That's, I think, a part of the function of Tintin. However, he's very active as a character. He takes a lot of initiatives. So that, although he's bland, I don't think that he's reactive, and I think that the initiative, the allurement to insert yourself in his shoes is exactly because he acts rather than reacts to most of the stories.
Right, yeah. So
I think, for example, also sympathetic, to have a sympathetic character, you can have a reactive, very passive character and have them be very sympathetic. Like in John Wick, the dog that gets killed is reactive by nature, but it's very sympathetic, and he provides the excellent motivation and explanation that gives us the capacity.
Oh, you turned off your mic, Tans.
Okay, yes.
I did, because there was some noise, background noise. Anyway,
okay.
What I was saying was that you can have a reactive character be super sympathetic. That doesn't mean that they will be also interesting. They will probably be a motivation for all the active characters rather than anything else. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How would let's give people examples of active, reactive. Like in your news post, you've got like Frodo. That was a fantastic example. So Frodo in the books is a very active character, and in the movie he is a reactive character. He's not as interesting anymore because that's just how they made him in the silly movies. And it changes the way he's seen, doesn't it? It totally like inverts his character.
He's a different character.
Yeah.
He's a different character.
Completely.
And I think that the most iconic scene that proves that is the Weathertop scene, where in the books he fights against a much bigger and more overwhelming opponent that he can't possibly win against, but he still takes the initiative to defend himself and blah blah blah. However, in the movies, he just drops his damn sword. He drops it and just stares, just like that. There is no reason for that character to do that, but he's portrayed like that in order to, I think, at least in my estimation, to serve as a backdrop of bravery for Aragorn, for the character of Aragorn in the movies.
Exactly.
So, like by comparison. Like, look at the Hobbit, how it cowers in the corner, and whoosh, in comes in the swashbuckling brave will be king character.
Right.
So
And by getting it wrong about the active and reactive characters in the scene, they changed the story and they messed it up in a lot of ways, because that's not meant to be the focus of Lord of the Rings at all. It's meant to be the childlike, innocent character who is the one who prevails, and it's his point of view. Yeah, but I digress. But yeah, that's a good point. It's by changing that, you change the whole character of a story quite badly. What about our characters though? I think I was trying to work out when I was reading this how I would characterize my own characters. You know, whether and I hadn't thought about it too deeply. But so far, I think I must do a mixture, I think, of active and reactive with my characters. So, like, Pinky TA is an active character who's also reactive. That's as much as, I can really think about it. So is that a common thing to do both? Or?
Common theme. I think it's up to you what to do more than anything.
Well, what I mean is, are characters often a bit of both, or are they, more usually reactive, or are they more usually active? Is it like?
I'd say it's probably on a spectrum. Like most stories, if you're with a character any length of time, they're going to be doing things and they're going to be reacting to things, and a more, some will be more active than reactive, some will be less, probably just on that continuum, it'll be somewhere in between, whether it's one extreme or the other, or,
All right.
An even split, you probably wouldn't find a perfectly even split very often, I don't imagine.
if
I would say that definitely, sorry, man.
No, continue.
In mind, the more active characters are definitely the more interesting characters for the most part. That not more interesting, more likable, not always, but the unscientific sort of poll that I have, done with which are people's favorite characters and which are they most seem intrigued by in the comments, are definitely the more active characters who do the, get something in their heads and they sort of ferociously pursue their goals. Not always. I have Big Wade, who is not anybody's favorite character as far as I can tell. But he's a bully and they don't like him. And he's a dummy and he's not that interesting. But sorry, Wade.
Moose.
You'll get better. You're going to have an arc. Moose, yeah. But it's definitely like the more active, the more, other than him, like the more active people who people are more interested in.
Okay. Well, I think, say in my comic, Pinky has been, in this particular chapter, she has been quite reactive. This is her reactive chapter. So the other characters are really taking the lead, and she sort of just limits her activeness to sort of speeches and things rather than anything else. So yeah, she's taking a bit of a break in this particular chapter, but in other chapters she's more active, and it depends. I think you can shake it up a bit. Sometimes characters can take a back seat, sometimes they can come forward, and you can move around. But I don't know if that makes it less interesting in this particular chapter, because I'm too close to it, I suppose.
I do think that. Oh, please go.
I was just going to say, like with a main character, I don't know if I'm right, but this is just my reactiveness. If she's the main character, we're kind of almost always with Pinky, so she's going to have more nuances, and we will see more shades of, sometimes she's reacting, sometimes she's acting. That's all I was going to say. Tense. Conch.
I think I would say.
What did you call Tans?
What did he call me? I didn't hear anything. What did he call me?
No, I was just joking.
She proposed a 50 Shades of Pinky.
Yeah. I think that Pinky is a strong enough character that when she reacts, yes, she is reacting right now, but the situation calls for her to be reactive. It's not like a trait. It's more of the situation that demands it rather than herself per se. Like when the situation shifts, then she will become proactive again.
Yeah.
And basically that.
You're right. Yeah, it's not something that defines her character. She is not a constantly reactive person. Yeah, she situationally, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
What I think most of your characters in, say, Without Moonlight, they're mostly all active characters.
Active, yeah, I would say.
Trying to think
mostly,
of reactive characters in there. Maybe some of the Germans are more reactive than anything, but
I think I'm not sure that I have allowed any of my cast to be completely reactive, and I do that on purpose because I like them to cause things to happen.
okay.
That way, when a character has to exit, then their particular brand of activeness will also exit, and that will alter the story. Whereas if you have any character that is reactive, just reactive, their omission, when they die, for example, they will not be as missed. and I don't like that because if I have to miss the character, I want everyone to miss the character. So most of them, but I don't think that it is as obvious. Especially some characters are very active in the sidelines rather than front and center. So you might not notice them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. All right. I was just thinking of a reactive character who no one's missing. No, I won't bring that up. All right, what about...
Hey, I'm here.
What was that, Tons?
I said that Anna maybe was a mostly reactive character in the sense that she mostly reacted to stimuli.
She was
because she was so terrified in general. So she would be. Yeah, and now she's dead, so she's not reactive either. She's not active or reactive right now. She's dead.
She's inert now. She's totally inert.
Yes.
That's the third category that we didn't bring up.
Yeah.
Inert, the rocks.
That is a good point. I've brought up over the years on the Quackcast, and I still don't remember what the book was, but I read this novel one time, and the character was this woman who was betrayed by her husband, and she sort of married this other guy or something, and the guy was really kind of abusive and cheated on her, and she was the most passive character I've ever read. Man, God, I wish I've forgotten for years, and it just came back to me when you were saying that. And she was so passive and just letting this dude walk all over her, and at the end of the novel, literally, she kills herself. And I'm reading the book, and I was like, "Good, bye."
Yeah.
I hated that character so much.
You just reminded me. So, like I said, I've been subjecting Tange to all the Friday the 13th movies, good and bad, and that included Jason Takes Manhattan. we touched on this last time. I finally sat down and I watched the rest of it since then. After I got over all my infinite amounts of nerd rage.
We saw it all. We saw it.
Yeah.
But the Survivor girl in that, man, oh my god, you hate her so much for that fucking reason. Like all she does is like I don't know, like everybody's so mean, and then like oh god, like there's scenes when like she's right there and it's just like kill her, like you're supposed to be killing things, she's right there, kill her, like
That's the worst character. Yeah,
She's one of the survivors that doesn't feel that she has earned her survival.
Yeah.
Basically,
survivor guilt.
Which is exactly she takes no damn initiative, nothing. Like she has no ideas. She tags along to other poor devils that get eventually axed, and that's that.
And you know, it wouldn't be, I don't mind a lack of initiative so much as that the movie tries to make you feel so bad for her. And I think that's when it crosses the line for me for some of these things like this. Yeah. Like if a character isn't taking that much initiative, I wonder as long as the story that's developing around the character is still interesting. But like that character, for instance, a big part of the reason why she was so reactive is because the movie is trying to make you feel bad for her, which is just such bullshit, man. Like,
she's a victim.
Anyway,
didn't she have like dead parents or something, and her uncle?
I don't know.
She had a backstory that was kind of like
he threw her in the lake, and then like and then for whatever reason she was able to like see Jason as a little boy and like had this connection. Like fuck off, man. Yeah. You didn't earn that shit. Like that. So angry still, God.
Shinji kind of reactive character. Oh god.
I also think that she didn't have any purpose for seeing Jason as a little kid. Did she? I mean,
she didn't.
Did use it for anything? I don't think so. So yeah.
Yeah.
Just
fuck
sad,
man.
Sad and crappy. I sympathize with that. There are so many characters in books and stories and, you know, TV shows that you watch and you just think, yeah, okay, life is terrible, kill yourself. Kill yourself. Just want you to die. It'll all be over. Come on. Embrace the cold grip of death.
So you've watched Big Bang Theory too, I see. I just picked the name.
All those characters, just all of you, Sheldon, and all the rest. I don't know what Leonard
and all you others. Yeah,
kill yourselves. Oh, jeez. That is so true. That when characters are, you know, writers take heed. If you make them too, I don't know. It's not sympathetic is the word because they're not sympathetic.
It's like manipulative. I think it's emotionally manipulative. Yeah, pathetic, and just don't fucking do that. Nobody cares how, you know. It's so this goes into maybe something I think that we talked about before. You know, like this is where you make the mistake of replacing a character's actual character with backstory. Backstory should aid, it should be secondary to the character that you're writing. I mean, as a reader, what you read, your first perception of that character should be the character's character, not their backstory.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking very generally. I think there's lots of different ways to write things that you could actually make it work unconventionally. But, you know, that sort of emotionally manipulative backstory working where you make a character so reactive, it often, I think, is because the writer is making the mistake of replacing the character's actual character building with just a backstory.
Yeah.
And with just a backstory and leaving it at that. When it comes to backstories, I mean, but like, yeah, it's not good. It's shallow. It's cheap. It just makes me mad.
And it definitely doesn't make a character interesting ever.
Yeah.
A backstory, it doesn't really. I mean, you can have a backstory, but it doesn't. Yeah, exactly what you said. That is not what makes a character interesting.
Or it can even
their actual
it can even turn a character completely into a plot device, like a MacGuffin. It's not a character. It could have been a rock, and it would work just as well, rather than a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, give us the backstory of the rock. You know, when did its parents leave it and throw it in the river and all that?
Exactly. Its parents were lost in a volcano. The pressure yielded the rock. The rock now has issues.
Jeez. Precisely. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, because we haven't experienced that. We're just witnessing it like third hand or second hand, so we don't have any real stake in the events that character experienced. So that's a part of the problem with the backstory, as opposed to actually developing the character through events that we do witness.
Yeah.
Then we are experiencing it firsthand, so we have a stake in it, and we can sympathize with the character. But yeah, if you distance us from the character in some way, then you're also distancing our caring about the character as well. We're not gonna care. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, lay off the backstory. Or else, if you do have a backstory,
and lay off everyone just doing stuff for the character that the character could have done he or herself. Like, just don't do that, because it makes the character, like, stop having other characters do stuff for the character in question that the character in question could have done he or herself. Like, have them do stuff and
oh yeah,
that was my biggest gripe in the Frodo character in the movies, and that was why I generally don't like Lord of the Rings as a movie, the way that it was incarnated.
Yeah.
Because you have delegated all the stuff that the Frodo character in the books was doing to everybody else, and you have left nothing for the actual character. So why do you even have him in there? Like, just cut him out of the movie altogether, and it still works. Give the ring to Sam, since you like him so much. Like, have him be both characters. I would prefer that to what happened. So yeah, that was my small rant.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I agree.
You're right.
If you're having the character like not do things for themselves, then you're totally making them way too passive and way less interesting, because you're undercutting them in a way. You're taking out anything that could possibly be interesting about them, and just neutering them in such a terrible way.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it's not that all like reactive characters are bad, of course. It's just that your main character shouldn't necessarily be reactive, unless
I think it depends on the way of. Oh, sorry, please. Go.
I was going to say, yeah, your main character could be reactive if it's something that is more automatically sympathetic, like a first person think. Although I really can't think of any first person perspective. Oh, maybe like Gulliver's Travels, something like that. That's a reactive character. He's experiencing all these different things, not necessarily being active. They're sort of happening.
But I also think that that's a very good example that you bring up, because also you could have a reactive character that still comes across as active, just in the manner of his reaction to things. Like, for example, Gulliver reacts to all these fantastic travels that he finds himself in, and all the new stuff that he really reacts to because he's just getting to know them. But the way that he reacts and the way that he decides to act in certain situations, it's not passive. It's more proactive. Like, he wants to get to know the situation and just take control of it, although he's reacting to it. So I think that the idea is that it's more of the passivity, like just, if you are if you are the reed that bends with the wind, yeah, that's fine, but nobody's going to be interested in the reed.
Yeah.
Unless it makes a sound. So that's basically.
I was also thinking of Odysseus. He's another very reactive character in a lot of ways because things just happen to him constantly. He's just stuck with, and he does react he does act in some instances, very cleverly, but a lot of the time it's just whatever situation happens to him, he has to deal with as it happens, and so
But he takes control of it. That's the point. Like, for example, when he's in Circe's island, for example, he has to propagate the story at some point, because if he did nothing, he would have stayed there. The story wouldn't have continued if he hadn't taken the initiative. For example. So same as in Cyclops cave, he had to react to the obstacle that was Cyclops, but he had to take the initiative to react and not, let himself be eaten or whatever. So
he saved some of his crew.
Some of them, yeah.
I love that story. He's slowly dwindling crew, and you think, why are these guys sticking with him? It's less and less as they go on. And in the end, he ends up with no one. They're all dead, or somewhere else, or...
No, they're dead. All of them.
He lost the whole crew. Oh, God. It's a good story.
Maybe in prose, though, like, maybe not that, but in Gulliver's Travels, like, I was kind of thinking, like, in prose, you can be more inside a character's head, and it's about their thoughts. Like, a lot of Gulliver is about his prejudices and his point of view, like how he judges the little people one way, and then he judges the big people. See, that's how well I know Gulliver. I'll call them the little people and the big people. I don't remember what they're called, but
Lilliputians?
like the Lilliputians and then the Bigaputians.
I think it was just a giant.
Giants, yeah. So he, like, his perception of them kind of is kind of what it's about in a way. So to make him a super active character is maybe not, like, maybe there's more. I guess I'm asking, like, what you guys think. Like, is there more flexibility in prose because it's sort of more about it can be more of an internal character thing, more mental thing,
Oh, definitely. I think that a lot of reaction, if you add the inner workings, like the thought processes, it can be camouflaged, quote unquote, as being an action, like having initiative. Because if you have a character that contemplates different things and then chooses not to react, that in itself is an action. Like, he makes a choice. So having a character like that and watching what is going on through his or her mind immediately gives him more of a capacity, more of a chance to be perceived as an active character and thus have him be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just thinking in terms of comics, like popular comics, most characters are always or most popular comic characters are mostly active, aren't they? There's very few that are main characters that would be more reactive. Say like
I think it
Superman.
depends. Yeah,
I'll go on. What's that,
mostly.
Tom?
I was saying that I think it depends on the arc mostly because,
Oh,
like, if you
yeah.
take Batman, for example, there are some stories where he just is very active. Nobody cares in the sense that we care more about the Joker, for example, and why he's
Oh,
doing what he's doing.
Hmm.
Why? Because he's the
yeah.
one controlling the story, calling all the shots. Like in the Killing Joke, do you really care about like who commands most interest? Who is the
Yeah.
one that holds the story together? The one where does the interest bounce back to Batman when he has the choice of killing the Joker or not? In the end,
Yeah.
Right.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting point. So yeah, it can switch, but yeah. I was just thinking very black and white. I was thinking like, say, for a character like Superman, you'd always have to have him as the main character, yeah, as a active character, and all those other comics. But yeah, in a comic like Batman, where they can switch between other characters. Well, the Joker. I don't know. I don't read Batman, but do they sort of switch like that with other like Batman foes or?
Well, it's just that. Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, I don't read a bunch either, but just as a comic reader in general, like they just, there's so many comics. The characters and their supporting characters go on for so many decades. There's just it's unlimited stories. So they change perspectives and tell stories about side characters and all this kind of stuff. With Batman as a bit player or even off screen completely. Yeah, they can definitely do that.
All right, I know they do that with things like Judge Dredd and stuff like that. The few of those that I've read, they can switch up and have him as a background character, which is quite interesting.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a good idea to do that, and then you can make your main character more reactive and subservient to your your side character who I'll go on time.
Yeah, exactly. No, I was just going to add more to what you are saying, that you can actually use that as a tool by bringing to the foreground the one that you want, by making them take initiatives, strategic initiatives, so that you can underline parts of their personality or things that you want the audience to know about them, by making them take initiative and act in certain ways, while your usually active characters react to that. So you can have that.
Yeah.
Play.
You can switch between the two. So, what's it say the role of a sidekick character? Would a sidekick character normally be the more reactive, or are they just sort of secondary active character?
It depends, but in this theory, the more active they are, like the more interesting they would be.
Yeah, but
right.
Say for like I don't know, Robin. Yeah, that's the one.
Chewie.
Robin. Chewie is a much more reactive character, I think.
Oh my God! Yes.
Yes.
He shoots with that weird crossbow gun, and that's about all he does. Or maybe he crushes some stormtroopers' heads occasionally, but he doesn't do much.
And he just makes the action yells and growls.
Yes, exactly.
Basically, that's it.
Yeah. Just kill yourself, Chewie. Just kill yourself now. No one cares.
Yeah, actually, if you think about it, if Chewie was to die, the story, not the audience necessarily, but the story wouldn't miss Chewie.
That's
Like,
true.
he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, like, he gets a medal in the end, and yeah, he really does.
Originally, he didn't get a medal. Originally,
Oh, really?
no. Originally, he doesn't get the medal, but now he does because everyone is asking why didn't Chewie get the medal. That's
Oh.
racist and stuff like that. So.
Is that one of
That's
those?
racist.
Is that one of those edits that they did?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never even.
Oh,
realized
it's
that.
actually in the movie. I didn't know that either. That's funny.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Like,
But I think it goes to show the fact that he didn't get the medal originally. That's how much he adds to the story. Like,
he gets a participation medal.
Hey, he roared at that little boxy robot and made it roll away. He did something.
Oh, poor Peter Mayhew. Such a freak.
Is he playing? This is a little bit off subject, obviously, but is he playing Chewie in the new
I think
Han
they
Solo?
probably have him there.
prequel? Yeah.
oh,
Cool.
I'm not sure.
Well, I guess there's a Star Wars movie coming out before the Han Solo thing. Anyway, whatever. Who cares?
Not that it would matter, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
who is in the costume. But I think they're still doing it with him. That hairy, tall, weird, skinny guy. Oh yeah, terrible Ewoks. Yeah. So he is like a classic reactive character that is in a hugely popular franchise that we can easily bring up. What other Okay, most sidekicks in popular action films, like the female characters in Indiana Jones, they're reactive, and that's more of a stereotype because they're female, and you know that was done in the old style of movie, I suppose. But
All damsels in distress, I think,
what's that?
can qualify for. All damsels in distress.
Yeah, they are. They're more reactive characters, but you don't really. When you see them, you think, "Oh my God, they broke their ankle again!" Jesus Christ! Don't do that. Leave it behind. But you don't like those characters who are too reactive, do you? That's an example of characters who are reactive, who are done poorly.
You feel frustrated or you feel burdened, or especially if they run a commentary, but that's all they do.
Yeah.
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 Like one of the characters I personally hated. I have, like, she makes me want to kill her, which is extreme. Like, I usually don't have an issue with characters, but she's the one. Yeah, I don't remember her name, but she's the girl, the Indiana Jones girl in Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
I hate
The
Lily.
American one.
Yes, that's her name. I hate her.
Well, they're all
Like,
American.
she's the one character that I would love to see crushed by a boulder. Like, she never takes a single initiative. Even when she saves them because she's told to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, no, don't make characters like that, please.
Yeah. they're
And
not-
especially if you're going to make a character like that, please don't make them scream half the time they are screaming. Like, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
I was just thinking, say in The Simpsons, a reactive character, Marge is more a reactive character, and that's like a sexist thing. They
Yeah.
do that with female characters, and it's awful. You want that character I mean, I think they eventually were forced to change that and make her more of an active character. But initially, she was more of a reactive character, and she was awful because of it. Because she was always going, "Oh, homie, don't do this. Oh, homie, you're so
homie."
exactly, yeah." So it was just a damper on things, and it was boring to have her behaving that way. Yeah, so that is a classic reactive character, and a reactive character done poorly, at least in the early seasons. I think, yeah. Not that I really can talk about The Simpsons with too much authority because I haven't watched it for many years, and I suppose we're all pretty much like that. We gave up on The Simpsons a long time ago.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. That show's still on. But anyway, well, Jughead is my favorite comic book character of all time.
Okay.
He's a sidekick. He is a lazy slacker type, but he definitely has his own mind, and he goes against the grain of all the other characters and their girl craziness. And and you know, he has this sort of weird behavior. He's sort of like a stranger than everyone. He often has these goals in mind that are murky to everyone else until maybe the end of the story. So I would say he's an active character, I think.
Okay, so
in his achieving his own goals, and he's, I would say, by far the most interesting character in
all right.
the Archie universe, if there's such a thing.
The Archieverse.
Archie's pals and gals.
That's an interesting aspect. Are there any, like, so what about Betty and Veronica? Are they more reactive or active?
Again, like over so many decades, there's probably several different writers and lots of different stories.
I just remember mainly the cartoon.
I don't really know the cartoon at all.
What? That was fantastic.
No, I would say I've seen a bit, like with the band. You mean in the 60s cartoon?
Yeah, God, I used
or
to
the
love
90s
that.
one.
No, 90s crap. Who cares about the 90s?
I would say they're fairly active. They had, I think, maybe if Tans knows these comics at all, maybe she could tell us. But
I don't know them enough. Basically, I just know how they look like. That's the extent of my knowledge.
Okay. Yeah. They look like you and Pitt.
Yeah.
The dark hair and the blonde.
Like I don't really know. I wouldn't know. I know more about the Flintstones, if that helps.
The Flintstones.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, the Flintstones is a good example. Like, okay, the Simpsons copied the Flintstones, and they used to talk about that in the Simpsons. But what are the two characters? Don't tell me. I think one's called Betty in there as well, and the other one's Wilma.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
Betty and Wilma, and those characters are not totally reactive, female stereotypes.
No.
They are
They
active.
do take
Yeah.
I think especially Wilma, I think wears the pants in the house, and she has always worn the pants in the house. So
Yeah.
I see she's quite active in a lot of ways. And I think actually Fred, right? He's the
Yeah.
husband.
Fred.
I think Fred is more reactive actually.
He
than
is.
anyone.
Yeah, which is surprising as a main character. Even though he does a few stupid things, he is more reactive to situations. And Barney as well. The two male characters are more reactive characters, whereas Betty and Wilma are out there sort of, doing stuff and making things happen, which is an interesting thing. So The Simpsons failed in their copying. The Simpsons was actually more backwards in that. And the older thing was more progressive in some ways, even though Wilma is not a progressive character, really. But the handling of her is more progressive.
Handling, yeah.
I think she was probably
But I do
based
think
on...
that
Oh,
it
go on.
was a bit more truth in television, in the sense that a lot of wives are like that. At least over here in Greece, a lot of people would recognize Vilma as how wives are. at least within the context of the family power grid, let's say. Like the woman, the woman of the house, the matron, is the one that calls the shots more within the household, at least. So, yeah.
She's the, what would they call it in the old days? The chatelaine of the house, the matriarch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So they are naturally an active character. Interesting. It inverts the normal Indiana Jones type of thing. Yeah, with the male as the active.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I've never really thought of that from that perspective. And I was just going to say that Wilma was probably based on, in some ways, Lucy from, I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
But
Actually, I think. Sorry.
Yes, go.
I was going to say, and she probably is also based off of Lucy, but is she more like, what's her name, from the Honeymooners? Alice, kind of?
Yeah, Alice as well, yeah, because that was very much that dynamic, especially Fred was very much based on the guy from the Honeymooners. Very much that. But Alice
I'm going back on mute now.
Is a bit more... I don't. Alice was a bit more passive, though.
Just quick dropping.
Rather than an active character. Whereas Lucy is was very much a controlling, more powerful character.
Yes.
And what was her husband? Desi. So Desi was the way more reactive as a character compared to Lucy.
Yes.
Got some splaining to do, Lucy. I love that show.
Yes. She never did do that explaining, as far as I remember, that she was supposed to do.
Ricky, you're right. Yeah. Damn you, Pitt. You should be telling us this.
Pitface is just following the Quackcast on Twitter. Just chiming in.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of characters that are like that, and I think Lucy and she was really the only really progressive show that switched those characters about and had the female character as an active character for once, which is a good thing because that.
Wasn't that her thing? I don't know that show. That's all I know is the cultural things that are.
I don't know when it was first started, but how about also Miss Marple stories on TV and what was it? Murder She Wrote.
Oh yeah, that was in the 80s.
Angela in the 80s, okay.
But Miss Marple was much earlier. That, of course, Agatha Christie wrote that in the 1920s, and it didn't get till TV. I think until the 60s. Or it might have come to TV before that. Famous actor Margaret Rutherford, I think. I can't remember. But that was more of a movie rather than a TV series. The Miss Marple. So I can't talk with authority there. I imagine they did do a series sometime later. But yeah, that was giving a female character an active role. So, but I think one of the points I was trying to make is that Nancy Drew. The point I was trying to make is normally, that is sort of it is cut down. Well, it was cut down those sexist lines. So the men were active, the females were reactive, and that slowly did change, and that really marked the change in. That kind of pop culture, characters. And you can really, and say, even the thing we talk about, a lot of people talk about the strong female character. And, you know, that was a whole big thing, especially back in the 90s, saying, oh, we need a strong female character. And people misunderstood that in that means the female character has to be physically strong or has to be like a man character.
Dude, I hate the archetype 90s strong female characters so much, dude.
What they really should have done is had an active female character. That's what it should have been, yeah. You're right, Pitt. That strong female character was too much, you know, the man in the dress rather than action.
It's like, he's got to be sassy. Always got to be super sassy. Can't have any sense of humor and can't. I just fucking hate her, man.
Yeah.
Hate her. If she was real, I would like throw down with her in an alley somewhere, man, and fucking wreck her day.
She was commanding and she was bossy and all that kind of thing, rather than a person with a real personality. She was just.
Her personality was girl in trousers. With high heels.
Stupid heels. Exactly. Yeah. So active is really what we need when we talk about those kind of characters.
Mm-hmm.
Active is what we should aspire to. That's interesting. Yeah, I like it when we come to these like epiphanies. And new takes and new twists on things. I'm going to have to make a note of that. All right. Well, this has been a rather interesting Crackcast on active and reactive characters. Thank you guys for being part of it.
Thank you. And thanks to our listeners.
Just put the S in brackets, just in case.
Thank you, listener.
It's possible.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Pitface texts in bye.
Pitface has been our token reactive character for this particular character.
No.
Super easy. I love it. I'm going to do it all the time, like I already know.
Damn you, reactive character. Okay.